Welcome to the open caucus session of the Armstrong School District Board of Directors for January 4th, 2018. Won't you please rise for me for a moment of reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Burdell.
Here.
Ms. Bowser. Here. Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Elkin.
Here.
Ms. Lote. Here. Dr. Lobby.
Here.
Mr. Mulroy. Mr. Skate.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
The Board of School Directors of Armstrong School District convened an executive session on Thursday, January 4th at 7:00 p.m. in the Faculty Lounge of West Hills Intermediate School in Cutiani for discussion of personnel, student confidentiality, and real estate.
Thank you. Central office reports.
Yeah, we have an update for the board this evening on our ESCO project at Ellerton Elementary. I'll turn over to Mr. Kirk to introduce our Reynolds contingent this evening.
Yeah, tonight we have Mike and Rob here from Reynolds to go over the pricing for the project. We met with them last week about this, and I think you'll find that they're favorable compared to what the original estimates were, and they're going to briefly go over the scope of the work, discuss some of the alternates as well. Okay.
Can I move this out just a little so I can at least know what I'm okay, that's good. All right. Well, thanks. Appreciate you having us, and we're happy to be here to present the project. As Mr. Kirk said, does everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, does that background come from us?
Doug, move that tablet off the microphone. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So it's not me. As Mr. Kirk said, we've gone through all of our design and bidding for the project. We did come back with, as we were hoping we would, favorable results. We wanted to step back through you one more time. I know some of you may have not seen this in full. We do have the full scope here. I am going to run through it rather quickly for the sake of time, but obviously if there's any questions come up.
We have provided the board with the summary that you provided to us last week.
Okay, so you've seen it. So I'll run through it, and as the questions arise, please feel free to ask. I'll try to, if there's anything that's I think is of note that we want to focus on, I'll focus on that. But we'll want to kind of move through that and get to this, budget and schedule and whatnot. So. So basically, I want to just walk through our scope. We do have some alternates for your consideration, which you would have seen in the report. Go through our costs and savings for the guaranteed costs and fixed costs and savings. What we perceive sort of as our schedule from this point moving forward to and through construction, and then obviously if there's any questions after that, we'll address them. So really, just to preface this is very similar, and by design, very similar to Shannock Valley. We're keeping essentially the design intent the same, so the systems are similar with each other. Obviously, the buildings are a little different, so there are some caveats, but we're more or less. It's going to be a full replacement of the mechanical systems. Providing the air conditioning for the building, the new boilers, new chiller, all the units in the classrooms, in the office, exhaust fans and control. So that's the lion's share of it. This pretty much here, all we're really showing this highlighted red circle. What made sense for this building, the existing room. If you're not familiar with Elderton. It's attached to the high school. The high school actually has the boiler system for everything. So that building being essentially empty is still feeding the system at Elderton, which is obviously occupied more frequently. So we thought it made sense to split those so that you could really run those independently, and we can run that more more effectively, more efficiently. So we're creating a new boiler room that's between the cafeteria and the multi-purpose room, which turned out to be a very nice location, being in the back of the building, gives us good access. And we originally thought we might use the existing room or the electrical system, but it's not big enough to accommodate. So that is currently gym storage, but this building having quite a bit of space, we're going to be able to use the old serving line area where you would used to be the kitchen, or the cafeteria, the serving line for the multi-purpose room just for the elementary school. That will become the gym storage. And right now it's pretty much not being utilized. So it's a little better utilization of space. Electrical, like I said, very similar to Shannock Valley, where it's going to get new switchgear coming in, and all the panels, circuit breakers downstream, new emergency generator, receptacles. The lighting in there's pretty much all the lighting is going to be new fixtures because we are replacing a lot of the ceilings just because of having to run new pipe, new electrical, et cetera. So they will be brand new ceilings, brand new lights, with the exception of the multi-purpose room because that was done not fairly recently, so we didn't really want to feel the need, needed to spend the money to change that. But pretty much everywhere else you're going to get all new, and it's a single-story building, so everything's going to be running in that ceiling. Everything else, clock, fire alarm. We are going to have a new fire alarm just for that area, so you'll have really the existing fire alarm will remain for the high school, and you'll get a new system for the elementary side. One thing that's a little different, which we discovered at Shannock, was that a lot of the cabling, the data cabling, was not properly rated for fire, which you have to do in the ceiling because there's air running through that ceiling. So by code, that has to be done. So we are doing all of that, essentially setting up that infrastructure for voice over IP when you're when you're ready to do that, but it'll be ready to go. And then the card access, again, similar to Shannock, that will be added. Plumbing, new fixtures. Really, the biggest difference here, I think, is we are installing new water heaters. We didn't have to do that at Shannock. Here we do, so that'll be brand new, and all the supply piping will be new. The one we're not replacing all of the sanitary. It's all in very good shape. There is one area which from when it was scoped, discovered was where a lot of the issues are. That is actually, we're going to dig that up and that's going to get replaced. It's really right outside of the office. So that was the one area after it was scoped that we found it needed to be resolved. Everything else, because it's all buried in concrete, so that's going to get replaced, and then everything will get jet washed out. And then obviously all the plumbing in the kitchen and the gas connections. Kitchen, there's quite a bit of work in the kitchen, and I'll go through this, this and Shannock Valley, but here that kitchen is way larger than it needs to be. It's kind of the opposite of Shannock Valley. It was obviously sized for both the high school and the elementary. So we actually are downsizing some of the equipment there that's not really necessary, moving some things around. I mean, this was all in consultation with Luann and the kitchen consultant to come up with the plan of getting the new equipment, some new layout, adding, there's an old walk-in freezer that's not really being used. That's going to be taken away. There's a new one there, a relatively new one there already. So that it was redundant. That's going to get converted to storage. There's going to be new shelving for a lot of the storage areas, and we are adding cooling to the dry storage. That's essentially a Department of Health, according to the kitchen consultant, a requirement to keep it at a certain temperature now. So we're adding that on it's adding on to the system that's going into the office anyway. So it actually wasn't that drastic of a change. It was just adding one zone to the whole system. So it worked out quite well. I think I had a pictures might be hard to go to the next slide. See, it's like I said, it's a fairly large kitchen. So, I guess probably the biggest thing here is the new serving lines, reach-ins. There will be a new a cooking battery, and one of the alternates is we'll go into revolves around that cooking battery and the walk-in cooler. But just wanted to you can. It's maybe a little difficult to see there, but most, like I said, we're moving a sink. The sink that's in the main kitchen is going to go into the scullery sink is going to go into the dishwashing room. A lot of the stuff we can actually see that's going to be most noticeable: the architectural, all new windows. We're going to door hardware. A lot of the AD, all the code upgrades, similar to what we did at Shannon Valley. Creating a new secure vestibule and reconfiguration of the office. It's not as probably as drastic as what we did at Shannock, but there is some of that, and that'll all be updated as well. Finishes and casework. There's quite a bit of casework. All the classrooms. The office, nurse's suite, as you can see. It's a fairly extensive package. The kindergarten, one of the things we did, and I don't know that we had later, I think it was maybe later on in development, talking about where we have areas where there's coat hooks in corridors, which really we didn't feel was necessarily safe, because you end up with a lot of stuff and clutter in the corridor. So we were moving that back into the classrooms. And the kindergartens get all new storage casework as well. And then we're going to paint, pretty much paint all the hallways and classrooms here, just in the base scope. Flooring, there's not a lot of flooring here because a lot of the flooring is in fairly good condition. We're going to protect a lot of it during construction, but we will be replacing in the corridors. And the single-user bathrooms, and then the gang bathrooms will get a epoxy coating. As I said, one thing, and we'll show here, and some of you may have already seen we're trying to create an entrance for this building. There's because it's not real obvious when you drive up the drive there where the entrance for the elementary school is. So we're creating have a canopy and a drop-off area and trying to create some separation. Yeah, we can go to that. Is that in that one? No, I'm sorry, that's the, yeah. So this was a rendering. It's, simple but effective. When you come up the drive, you'll be able to know where Alderton Elementary is. And then on the drop-off side too, when you come up, you've got those large concrete barriers and some fencing. So again, as we were going through this process, wanted to come up with something simple. So what we came up with was essentially a planter. Was going to be a fairly large, high planter bed, and some line striping to create a drop-off area, and some additional fencing to retain because that also is used as playground area. There's playground space in front of the building, so we wanted to keep that as well. So something somewhat simple and effective that'll give a little better aesthetic appeal and be a little more functional. Can we go back to before the? Yeah, I just want to finish off here. One of the big we are going to also create a partition between the high school and the elementary school. So essentially the line of demarcation, which made sense because there is a set of bathrooms that gets used that are outside the cafeteria. The cafeteria used to be part of the high school, so it's more or less expanding the size of the elementary school. But rather than having there's a wall there now, but it's more or less a stud wall. We're going to put a secure partition there, because if you have other folks that are using, or leasing or in the high school, we'll have a two-way card read access there, so you can get in and out of there, or if teachers are taking kids down to use the gym in the high school, they can do that and get back in. But that really secures that side of the building. One of the larger things here, something we didn't have to do at Shannock, would be the roof. So we do have a new it'll be a 20-year roof membrane. So more or less what we did here, rather than doing an entire tear off, was we did a scan, coring, found the areas that may have had wet insulation. We identified all those, and what we're going to do, we're going to cut all that out, replace all that, and then that'll get a layer of insulation on it, and then a new membrane on it. So that'll be good for 20 years, or at least, 20-year warranty. Hopefully, it'll be better than 20 years. Also have doors and signage as well. This was, I think, the office. Yeah. So there's the office layout. Again, the layout itself doesn't change tremendously, but that entrance hallway, when you first walk in, essentially will become the vestibule. So this, it'll be secure up until anyone coming in that gets buzzed in will have to go through that door there to the right into the office. They will not be able to go into the building directly. Going through those. So that was everything, and as quickly as we could do at Elderton. We also have additional scope at Shannock Valley that we, weren't able to do in the schedule last year. Primarily, it's getting rid of the remaining asbestos floor tile, which is in a good portion that still remains. We did take some of that out last year, but a good portion of that still remains. In the large spaces as well, cafeteria and gym. We're going to go back and paint whatever we weren't able to paint. We did do some painting last year, but it was limited in the classrooms. A lot of the hallways were done, and then the kitchen, completing the kitchen renovation that we started last year. So this will get. I think I have a. If you go to the next slide, I think, yeah, I show that. So that kitchen is relatively small. So what we worked out was to actually add this. There's only a single serving line, and then there was a mobile serving line that was always in front of the stage. So that's going to go away, and we'll end up creating a two serving lines coming to a central point of sale that's in the cafeteria space, and then where the serving line is now, we'll get new reach-in warmers and coolers. There will be a new kitchen battery here with a new hood. That's that really completes what we did. Kind of everything to the right of that is what we did last year or this past summer. Now we'll be able to go in and finish that. So all that being said, this was what we came up with. We're at about 7.2 million for Elderton, and 52. I have it here too. I should just look at my own notes. For Shannock Valley, so our overall is 8.078 million for both, without the alternates, which is below. I think our running budget was about 8.5 million as we were working on this. So we feel pretty good about that, to be able to bring you that. We can. If you'd like, go through the next I can run through those alternates for you. So there's really 5 alternates. A lot of it revolves around the kitchens. The first one is an alternate cooking battery. So it's at Elderton. It's primarily a different. I believe it's different ovens, combi ovens versus the convection ovens. And then also would include a new hood, because the hood that's there wouldn't be large enough to accommodate the new equipment. So we'd have to do that, and add the fire suppression system with that. Also at Elderton, in the base project, we aren't replacing the existing cooler, which is in decent shape. All we'll be doing there is replacing, at least in the base project, the shelving that's in there. This would replace the entire walk-in. Alternate 3 is similar to alternate 1, but for Shannock Valley is the kitchen battery there. So it's replacing more or less different. It's an equipment swap out.
If we can comment, the administration met with Luann and Fee, our food service director, and it's our recommendation to do these 3 alternates in both kitchens. at Ellerton and Shannock. This equipment's eventually going to go at some point, and when we're in there, doing work at the kitchen, we might as well do it all at one time. So it is our recommendation to do these 3 alternates.
The cost include the 3 alternates, or it's?
The cost for those 3 are $24,000 for the first one, $49,000 for the second, and $46,000 for the third. But the overall, the $8.2 million, or just shy of 8.3, does include the alternates in it.
Right.
But what was budgeted, 8.5?
8.5. That was the estimate.
Original.
But
So the last 2 at Shannock, there's one area in the building that we don't have in the base project. That would be the library, which essentially would be the only place left that would have any asbestos tile. Now it's currently under carpet and a lot of furniture and books. So there's a lot of labor in terms of removing because pretty much every stitch of every page of book and shelving of furniture would have to come out of there so that the carpet could be removed, the floor could be remediated. It would obviously need to be dealt with just like you're doing with any of the other spaces in terms of the asbestos abatement, and then ground down, and then new carpet put down, and then everything put back in. So that's why it's a little more, it's a very labor intensive, but again, it's we're doing the entire building. That's a lot. There's no carpet and books. Everything else is fairly easy to move out. This is fairly substantial. So we didn't want to include that. We wanted to really give you that option. And then the last alternate is there is an area of the roof at Elderton that is part of the high school, but it's the area right adjacent to the elementary school, of which a part of that part of that building is being used, and that's the area where I was talking about where the secure entry would be, and there's some the restrooms that are also being used, and some hallway there. So this alternate would replace that section of roof only, not anything else in the high school. So.
And again, it's our recommendation to do these 2. The carpet or the tile under the carpet in the library at Shannock. Eventually the carpet's going to need replaced. When you go to replace, you're going to probably have to remove that tile, which would be the only asbestos tile left, since we're getting rid of the rest of the tile that has asbestos. So our recommendation, do it now and upgrade the carpet, and then that building's completely done. And as for the roof part, again, the restrooms are the restrooms that the students use outside the cafeteria, and the faculty room is right there in that area where they're talking about, and that roof is starting to go bad. So that section does need to be replaced as well. It is considered the high school part, so that's why they did it separate as an alternate. But we do have students that utilize those restrooms there.
So
and again, the total is 200-some thousand, but that is included in the $8,290,000 overall.
correct.
And community uses that part.
Well, the community uses the gymnasium.
Is that part where
That's
No,
no.
the secure entrance he was talking about. The community uses the part on the other side. The restrooms are going to be on this side of that secure entrance.
So now the community's further down.
Yeah, when we did the initial study, that we did survey the entire roof. So we have provided to the administration our survey, so you know where some of the bad spots are at the high school also, if those ever needed to be addressed. And I believe the gym was actually in pretty good shape. So that's probably the most used section of the high school, but there was really no work to need to be done there.
We're going to have to address that high school building soon. So at some point after these projects are done, that's going to be on the radar soon.
So that all told, I think was that? Yeah, I said all told. You said it's 8.2 when you total, if you did go with everything with all the alternates included.
Any questions for these folks?
Are we-
Just, you know, and I'm sure you're thinking, and we'll talk about how we're going to pay for this next month. We're putting together some financing options, working with our underwriter currently to getting us some numbers. The rates are still favorable. We can borrow money. We're obviously going to go out and do a bond issue. This is going to be under $10 million, so it's bank qualified, which typically you get a better rate when it's under $10 million. So we'll have those numbers for you for next month. We're waiting to come to you with those numbers because depending on how the project comes in with the stadium and some other things we got going on, we might want to do some more money also instead of just for this. So we'll have that for you next month to approve the financing for the project.
You have Schedule B in here, which is the cash flow analysis. Do you want to wait till next month to talk about that, or would you like to?
They generated that. If you want, if we could talk about it.
Would you go over that?
Yeah, I mean, this is only obviously inclusive of, I think it only includes the base project.
And I can tell you, right,
Yeah.
it might not be a good thing to look at this because the financing payment is not even anywhere close to what our financing payment's going to be. I'm looking at numbers right now at borrowing $9.5 million. It's somewhere around the neighborhood of $360,000 a year instead of $562. So that number there, I can tell you, is skewed. It's $200,000 higher.
What, my
Yeah.
question is, what are avoided capital, you have avoided capital costs at one point and avoided capital savings another. What, could you explain that?
Well, they essentially match each other. So the avoided capital is basically everything, you know, that's outside of the guaranteed savings, more or less, to come out with a net savings. So it's more or less all the work that you're doing that would be a capital expense, but it's amortized over whatever the financing period would be. So this is really as part of the package and as part of the agreement. This is a required schedule, so it's more or less a pro forma. It's meant to be an exhibit, and we obviously like to get it as close as possible to what reality might be for how you're going to borrow. But if we don't know that information, a lot of times, for a lot of our projects, well, I should say a lot, in some instances, we're asked to help bring the financing, and most school districts, you have your own. If you're doing bonds or have your own bond, you're through your bonding agency, you might compete that. You're going to go get your own. You can do better than we can, so you're going to do your own financing. So this will be more or less maybe a worst case scenario. But if you knew what that was going to be, and of course, if Sam, if you know a better rate, we certainly could put the better rate in there, so you have a better idea what that's going to be.
I guess what you would be concerned about on this is if you look at the savings that's generated from electric, natural gas, water, operational, okay, those are some true savings we're going to see.
Right.
All right. Then they come up, they're guaranteed. So the avoided capital is just that we're doing it now instead of prolonging it, doing it later on. And then the financing payment, which like I said, it's going to be considerably less than what that is. And that's truly what's going to have an impact on our future budgets. Is that new financing payment less than what our savings are going to be than what that nets out to be?
Okay.
And we'll
Yeah,
have,
that answers my question.
Yeah. The avoided capital is just a term used in the Guaranteed Energy Savings Act to define anything that is not true energy savings. So
Okay.
it's just technical jargon.
Any other questions from board members?
Just one. You have cosmetic updates. Now, a cosmetic update has nothing to do with energy savings, does it?
Yeah.
It does.
No, it does not.
So how much cosmetic update are we talking? Can you give me a round figure at all?
I mean, I would consider anything that's paint. A lot of it's.
but the new entranceway.
Yeah, see, I have it
You're allowed
all.
to have what, up to 15% of the project?
Yes.
You're allowed to go up to 15% of the project can be cosmetic.
So basically what we did is we lumped a lot of the things that are more or less general construction together. So that's going to be a smaller portion of the whole. The ADA is obviously anything anything we have to upgrade for code, it's more or less going to be lumped together. I would say something that's truly cosmetic is going to be things like painting,
Your ceiling
things like
tiles?
I'm sorry?
Are ceiling tiles considered cosmetic?
It is, but in a sense, it is cosmetic, but it's not part of that 15% because we have to take it out
Because of the-
to do all the mechanical system upgrades.
Okay.
So something like the entrance canopy would really be cosmetic.
How about the floor covering? Like the flooring and the...
Flooring is in this, in anything that's really not considered like where we're doing the remediation, for instance.
Casework?
Yes, casework. Well, yes, I think part of it would be. I think where we're having to do
Probably-
mechanical systems.
Probably the redesign of your office area and things like that, some of that would have to be considered cosmetic.
Yeah, so it's I'm certainly, I mean, we could try to break that down better for what's truly cosmetic and not, because it's very intertwined. When we put our scopes together, especially when we're trying to get pricing, you're not separating that out, so you're getting the price to do, all of your flooring or all of your ceilings. Like I said, but things like, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would also be considered cosmetic. Windows aren't cosmetic. Windows are actually an energy saver. I'm trying to think what else you might consider cosmetic.
Matt, I'm looking at the Shannock Valley, your pricing list, and it has annual savings and operational savings, and there's nothing down there for the Shannock Valley, $850,000.
We've already got our operational annual savings, because everything we did before was energy related. Now what we're doing at Shannock Valley is floor tile, it's painting, and it's new kitchen appliances. So in last year's presentation, which was all Shannock Valley, it did show what those operational savings were going to be annually. What we're doing out there now is going back and doing some of the cosmetic things, fixing the floor tile, abating the floor tile, painting the walls. So mostly what we're doing now is cosmetic out there.
Yeah, the remediation.
We already seen our savings with the new
remediation.
upgraded systems that
Right,
we
but
put
doesn't
in.
it, because it's on this project, this $8.2 million project, does this count towards that 15%?
Yeah, in fact,
All
the
aggregates, yes.
All
Right.
together, combined, correct?
What we did last year
Right.
is combined with this project for a total of, somewhere around there.
it'd be probably closer to 17 and a half. So if you took
It's all one project, which is
Yes.
two parts.
Yeah, and we watch that actually pretty carefully, because you can certainly get called to the carpet on that. We want to make sure, and because we'd had that conversation about that very thing. Can we fit that stuff in? And it's more or less, if we have the buying power to do it. And I think part of the, we were talking on the way up here, where we are versus our budget. Well, we were able to come in lower, which we're it's a lot easier to come in lower, and talk to you when it's lower than it is if it would be higher. But we have, we're able to create a larger scope of work, which is much more attractive to our contractors, which gives us a much better buy. So I think that had a lot to do with, our pricing being more advantageous. So again, we didn't do, and we didn't do the painting at Shannock. It wasn't original in our scope, because we really wanted to make sure we were staying within that budget, and we did much better there than we thought. So you now had the ability to do that. So why I was like, well, when you see what you do, and when you how nice everything looks when it's done, and then you go and it's like, then you really see what looks old. Yeah. So paint coat of paint goes a long way, but it's we want things that are going to last. So it's anything, when I say I have cosmetic there at the end, I think it's a lesser part of the whole there.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I have one other thing under administrative. We just received our bond and audit reports. Typically, I present that to you guys, give you a summary. I'll get that summary out to you probably next week sometime. I'll send a PDF copy of that. If you want a hard copy, I'll bring it to the meetings. You can take it. It'll probably be in February, and then I'll ask for approval. But again, as I've been talking the last couple months, very favorable We ended the year with a fund balance of about $10.2 million, so we had a revenue over expense of about $2.6 million, which was actually about, we were supposed to use $1 million or so from the fund balance. So we had a really, really good year, and I'll explain why that was. So you'll have that next month.
Are we correct that on Monday you want all 5 alternates in there? Because they're going to be running schedules starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll notify them tomorrow for that.
But is that the consensus of the board to do it that way?
You're doing it, you do it right, yeah.
With me, I don't see any reason not to do it.
Yes, yeah. Get it up to date, we're doing them right. Yeah.
So it's got to be one vote for the entire project, for all this, plus there's no option on the alternates, is what we're saying.
Well, there is in the sense that if you don't want alternate 1, they need to know that for running their final schedules with things like the 15% rule and all those things that tie into it.
I think what Mr. Smith is asking, if he does not want to vote for a certain alternate, can he vote no for an alternate before yes for the whole project? Is that correct?
Well, let me say it this way.
Good enough.
I don't think it would work if you end up with a majority not wanting an alternate. They'll have to redo their schedules.
Right.
That's why we were asking now
We could take-
if there are at
we
least
could take
5
those
votes for the
one
alternates
at
or
a
not.
time instead of lumping it into the original motion.
Well, but their schedule's gonna have everything combined, the entire project and the 5 alternates.
That's what I'm saying, after we vote on it, we tell them next Tuesday, this is.
We need to have that in place to vote on.
Yes, unless you do what you did last time, where you approve the contract subject to another month going by and approving the schedule. If you want to do it that way, I guess you can. I don't know what your timeline is, where you could then vote
Sooner the better,
separately
they have
on
lead
each.
time on materials and everything else.
You could vote separately on each alternate, but you won't be approving their final guaranteed energy saving numbers calculations is what I'll call them. They'll know what the scope of the work is at that point.
Could we just get a feel for how everyone is right now?
Yeah, you're at a public meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what are your opinions on what you've heard tonight, what you've heard thus far, with these plans with the alternates?
We can go through the alternates and then see. I don't have any problem with them.
You know, a lot of times, I gotta rely on the administration myself to do the due diligence, to do the research. Sam, you've got that budget, it's gotta be under control, and so if you're coming forward with recommendations,
We're coming through, when you come through with the recommendation to borrow money, we're gonna come through with probably borrowing up close to $9.5 million. Even though we're looking at only needing 8.3, but to be honest with you, the difference between borrowing 8.3 and 9.5 is maybe $30,000 a year. When you spread it out over, you borrow the money. So the reason for the additional funds is some of the other projects we want to complete with West Shamokin and Fieldhouse, and depending on how these bids come in for Armstrong, okay? So we did meet, there are 3 of these items that have to do with the food service department. We met with Luann, and she's recommending that we do those. The one thing that, as they mentioned, that is still satisfactory is the cooler, but the cooler at some point is going to need to be replaced. Whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, we don't know. But as we know, things get more expensive to replace later on down the road, and it gets more labor intensive just to come in and do one thing. The combination units, the cooking things, she would love to have them. It'd be much more efficient, and we need those anyways. As for the library carpet, as we talked about, the carpet is still okay, but there's asbestos tile underneath it. You're getting rid of all the other tile in the building. Why leave one room that way? Because eventually when you tear that carpet up, you're probably gonna have to bait it at some point, take the tile out when you put new carpet down. And lastly, the roof has some issues in a portion where students are using the restrooms outside the cafeteria at Ellerton, and it needs replaced. It's the one section of the high school that our kids are actually utilizing.
On a
And
daily basis.
on a daily basis, and it needs fixed when we're doing the rest of it. And the only reason it was out separately, we asked them to do it separately that way because it was actually attached to the high school. And again, overall, their estimates were around 8.5 million for all this, even before when you added the alternates in. And it came in below.
All right. You guys have any questions about some of the alternates? Some feelings about the alternates, one way or the other? The point is, if it's close enough where we may have to take some of those out, then that's fine. I mean, if that's the wishes of the board, but if the majority are okay with that, then, go ahead, Doug, did you?
Yeah, if on Monday you change your mind on one of the alternates, we'll tell them to amend their schedules accordingly. But they just need to know what is their base motion for Monday? Is it with the alternates in which case their schedules will read accordingly? Or not? I mean, is the consensus to at least put the base in and then decide from there what you want to do?
My whole point is, we're gonna have to borrow this money. That's another $9.5 million, tapped on to $10 million last year. You know, somewhere, to use one of your phrases, we've got to draw a line on continuing to borrow for cosmetic extra things that we may or may not need. That's my whole point.
I totally agree with that. I mean, I didn't see anything there in terms of what was cosmetic. I didn't see anything that was out of whack, in my opinion. You know, because I also would have brought up those concerns, but I didn't see anything that would cause me to be concerned.
The biggest cosmetic thing you have that's going in is the new canopy, the entranceway at Ellerton. And if you've been out there, you don't know where the elementary side is. And every other one of our buildings in all our other elementary schools has an identified entranceway. And when we asked them to do that, that actually came from the administration. Yeah.
It came from me.
And we needed to do something. We needed something to do there. And
Right now, if you drive there, there's Jersey barriers in front of the entranceway of Ellerton Elementary. It's not pleasing to the eye for our kids to get out of the bus and go around those Jersey barriers at an entrance that isn't identified.
And I agree. Whenever you come to each elementary school, you know where it is, and it's important. I mean, curb appeal. When people come to your school, you want them to know, and that's part of it. Like at your house, you have curb appeal. You should have it at the front of your schools too. You should be proud to present, this is where our school is. And I agree, when we did the tours at each one of the schools, I was totally confused when we pulled up in the bus to Elderton, like where we were and how that all connected. That was very confusing when we did all the tours.
Well, we went out there with a pre-bid meeting, and we just found it on the point that there were contractors everywhere. When we sent out the notice, we said come to the elementary entrance, that they were trying to get in every door.
And they had no idea where it was. Yeah.
They just didn't know.
Yeah, I'm the same way when I go up there, where's the entrance at?
Yes. And you're from, you went there.
Yeah, I think these are all, I mean, going by the recommendations of the board administration and everything, I think they're well, and they need to get it done. And that's my consensus.
I don't think we've done anything extravagant. We don't have chandeliers anywhere. We don't have extravagant carpets anywhere or anything. I think we've done to make it safe and look nice for the students. We haven't done anything extravagant. It's not going to be extravagant there. It's going to look good for the students and people visiting.
Any other thoughts?
You know, I might agree that we're paying some money up front that we wouldn't have to pay right now, but if we have to pay that in 2 or 3 years, it's going to cost us far more than it's going to cost us.
Yeah.
you're eventually going to paint
You know,
the walls. You're eventually going to put ceiling tiles in, because if you walk in any of our buildings that have been around for a while, the leaks that have come down, and still ceiling tiles that are stained throughout the district, we're replacing all those.
You know, I think even all the alternates here, I think we need to go ahead and do them. Just, you know, it's the insurance policy that protects us over the next 5 or 10 years. You know, you never know whether you're going to make out or whether you're going to lose, but.
And I agree with Mr. Smith that borrowing money is not, our debt is high. We have a lot of debt. But I think we're doing a good job managing the debt. We're doing a good job building the fund balance back up. We're doing a good job minimizing tax increases. We've had very minimal tax increases over the last 5 to 8 years. And there's no other way to do it. We don't have $8 million in cash. I mean, we could use up all our cash. We would have no fund balance left. I would never recommend that. I think the impact that this has on the budget, which is actually, again, less than $1 million, it's almost $0.5 million, about 0.4 million, for that $350,000, which I'm anticipating that's what our payment's going to be. I think it's doable in our budget.
Okay, well, I don't think we really decided on how to do
Well,
that.
what I'd suggest to you is have administration contact them tomorrow. Tell them to include all 5 alternates, and when a motion is made, it can be amended to eliminate any particular alternate, and you vote on that. And if it fails, then you go back to your main motion with all 5 alternates. That gives you a little more time to think about it.
Sounds good. Everybody would.
They just need to know rough, they had to have some idea what their starting presentation is on Monday.
And just to be clear, last year we went through the process of looking at a new underwriter, and we chose to retain Piper Jaffray. That's who I'm currently working with to get these numbers. They have agreed to honor their price of last year, which was $3.90 per thousand on the bonds, which before they were charging us more, but through the process we beat them up and got that price down. So as long as everybody's still comfortable with working with them, that is who we are currently working with to get the numbers and estimates on this.
Any other reports from administrators?
That's it for this evening.
Okay, no student board reports tonight. Any public comments on agenda items? No?
Tomorrow morning she'll have some.
Yeah. Okay, now we'll do the presentation of the regular monthly agenda for January 8th, 2018. I am looking for, do I need consensus on reports? Yeah. Okay. So I need consensus to add the organizational meeting minutes for December 7th, the caucus meeting of December 7th, the regular meeting of December 11th to the agenda on Monday. Do I have consensus?
Yes.
Consensus for that. Is that all I need to do for that, Linda?
Yes.
Also, look for consensus to add the bills for the food service fund in December, capital projects fund in December, athletic fund in November, and the presentation of bills for payment for December. Do I have consensus to add bills to the agenda?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Personnel items 1 through 12. Consensus to add those to the agenda.
Yes.
Okay. Education, Ed 1. This is the addition of courses for 2018-19. Is there anything to add to that from the administration?
It's child development and fashion and design. We typically offer them independent study. We're going to put in the curriculum book, and it'll show up in the kids' transcript. No additional staff will be needed to run these courses. We'll have, as we begin scheduling for next year, we'll have specific numbers or as we move forward.
Is that just at,
It'll be in the Family Consumer Science Department.
is that just at Armstrong? Or will that be at
district-wide?
district-wide?
Do I have consensus to add Ed 1 to the agenda for Monday? Okay. Business, one item under there, workers' compensation physician.
Yeah, there was a revision, and I'm not sure which doctor came on and which went off, but attached is the current panel as of December 7th, or docs that we have to use, workers' comp.
Consensus to add business 1 to the agenda. Construction, just 1, C1, guaranteed energy savings agreement.
We'll have a motion with the alternates on it. They'll prepare that for us.
Consensus to add C1. Student transportation services, approval of bus drivers, pretty standard. Consensus to add that to the agenda. Policy, 2 items under policy 1 and 2. Solicitor, want to add any comments?
1031 is, again, a policy we have to have due to some federal regulations. These are amendments to it, and what the amendments are doing is being more thorough and elaborating upon how these complaints are investigated if a student or parent has a complaint regarding a child who has disabilities. The other one, employment of superintendents. That policy is updated to comply with some new amendments that came in with the last go-around of changes to the school code whenever they finally adopted the budget. The most important truly change is that you've often heard the 150-day rule, that you have to notify superintendent if they're being renewed within 150 days. That's been shortened to 90 days. That's not a concern at the present time, because Mr. DeVivo still has a number of years left on his contract. But that's the major change in that policy.
Got to keep a tight leash on these superintendents. Do I have consensus to add those 2 policy items to the agenda? General, so are we trying to do the election tonight for Aaron, or?
Well, if you have a volunteer, that name will
Yeah.
be put in motion for next Monday.
Where did we land on that? Oh, Mr. Burdick.
I'll gladly accept it.
Look at that.
There you go.
How gracious
All
of
right.
you.
I said I'd be the alternate if you weren't. We could split it if you want to split it.
Your enthusiasm impresses me.
Excellent.
I sent him an email under guilt.
We'll vote on that on Monday, so I've, need consensus to add that? Yes, I would.
I won't be
Consensus?
here on Monday, so this help you go.
Okay.
Oh, more reason to vote.
No problem voting on reading. That's it. Back over to the open caucus meeting agenda at this point. Informational folder.
There's a number of items in your informational folder. There's a letter of request from the Armstrong County Historical Museum regarding the piece of property across the street from Katanning Junior High and their interest in that piece of property. So I'm sure we'll have some further discussions regarding that piece of property as we move further into the process of the demolition of that property. There's also a letter of request of the YMCA regarding the potential use of fields, field house, and tennis courts at Katanning Senior High site, and they want to begin communications with the board and the likelihood that could eventually happen in the future. There's district-wide enrollment numbers in there by grade, and there's some positive newspaper articles. And also, I want to draw your attention to student artwork throughout the district by building that you see in this program. And that's all we have now.
Okay, great. Anything from board members? Or other? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Burdell, second by Dr. Lobby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.